Hello there, everybody. Hello there, everyone in YouTube land. How are we all doing today? Um, I am the Common Sense Guy, or as some people know me better as now, is Jason. I am with the voice of one. Yeah, one day he will get that correctly. I'm with.
Sorry, I do apologize, old boy. I didn't know how this stream had started. Hmm. Hello.
Oh dear. Oh goddamn dear. I'm regretting this already. We have Jensen Quinn,
Hello.
and we have Crumple Point.
All right.
As you can tell, tonight we're going to be talking about Tommy, and first of all, we're actually going to be saying, fucking well done. Justice has been fucking done for a change, and actually, Tommy Robinson has been freed as of this afternoon, around about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So, yay for that one. First of all, how does the panel actually feel about the fact of Tommy Robinson being released?
I'll go first with that. We fought the good fight. He won. Now all we need is for him not to mess it up when it's his time in court. Yes, I did catch myself from swearing.
No problem. Anybody else?
Crumple, you want to go first?
Sorry, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead, sir.
No, after you.
No, I insist, old boy.
Oh dear.
I was massively relieved because I was so sure that they were going to just keep him in and keep him in and keep him in and just hope that everybody forgot about him because, like, realistically, see if they were to keep Tommy Robinson in jail forever on no charge, what would actually happen about it? Or that he would get, mysteriously set upon by some peaceful other inmates, and we'd never hear of him again. And like that's mainly my view on it, because like I know he's a bit of a figurehead, and I know he's a campaigner, and I know he's a journalist, but at the same time he's also a human being, and I do worry about him and other people. So yeah, I'm glad.
Well, I think it's a good thing he's out. I think it has nothing to do with the law. This is 100% political. While he was inside, he was getting too much attention. Now, I'm sure some politician somewhere pulled a few strings, so he gets out and people should forget about him. I think that's what it's all about. I don't think it has anything to do with justice at all.
Agreed.
I've always gone down that point. You cannot be arrested for breach of peace and then be tried without an actual him even being there, as we found out later on. The fact that he was tried for contempt of court. You can't be arrested for one act and then tried for something else.
That was the kicker for me, is that they, like you say, arrested him for one thing, they tried him for another thing, then they tried to retroactively say that, oh no, the contempt of court goes back to the day in question, and that doesn't work either, because he's got, they've got the police officers, I'm sure, on tape saying,
Yes.
oh yeah, you're fine to film here, mate. So just stay far away, but you can film there. And then when you see the police officers coming to arrest him, it's a different set of police officers. And I was thinking, it obviously is. I know it's Quinnspiracy night, but it obviously was real police officers. But the way they went about it, it looked more like a bunch of people dressed as police officers who dragged him off. That was not like, it wasn't the way you usually see Bobby's acting, So yeah, it was very suspect.
I think the reason why they didn't act the way that they would normally act, as in trying to drag him away or beat him down to the ground, is simply because of what he is. He is a signal. He is a form of a person that is now in the limelight. If something happens to him, he's the figurehead of something that goes on. So if you attack the figurehead, you attack the ideology, especially nowadays with the idea of identity politics. So if you were to physically attack Tommy, he knows, and the police know that they would have people that would try and fight for Tommy at that point, right then and there.
Oh, I agree, but that's what I meant was the way the van appeared, and what was it? 6 of them just kind of jumped out and kind of shepherded him away as quickly as possible. I'm pretty sure I remember them they took his phone straight off him, and I'm pretty sure they tried to grab the camera off the cameraman who hadn't even been doing anything wrong. Like, they hadn't even tried to arrest the cameraman, they were just trying to take the camera. What I mean is, having seen people being arrested, it's usually a thing of they try and do it basically verbally first and talk you into the vehicle.
Yes.
But with him, it's like they were quite gentle about it in that I didn't mean the getting the batons out and whacking him to death, but they basically just grabbed him and pulled him into the van, and he's like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. Like you see, there's a bit on his face as well. Like you can see it. It's like the exact moment he's like, I'm fucked. Like because they didn't say anything.
Yeah.
And he obviously doesn't know what's going on, but he knows how much he's hated, and he's like, oh shit.
No, I completely and utterly agree with that. I mean, the way that I don't know if anybody's seen any pictures of how Tommy Robinson actually looks from the way that he's out. He has lost shit tons of weight. I mean, he's lost a lot of weight. He doesn't look like the same Tommy. He looks very, very lean. He doesn't look well fed at all.
Do you think they did a Kokesh on him?
I'm not 100% sure, but because with the idea of, first of all, at least they put him in isolation. With the isolation, they don't always feed you straight away, and they don't always feed you your 3 square meals either. So I don't know on that aspect. That's just me hypothesizing. But I have always found it really interesting the amount of different conspiracy theories that are or were around the idea of Tommy Robinson actually being taken, so to speak. You had one conspiracy theory of the actual judge himself that was presiding over certain cases that did not like Tommy Robinson in general. Actually phoned the police and actually get him arrested from that point. And then you have that same judge then actually completely take out the evidence, as in not use the evidence to convict him, as in the actual Facebook live video feed that they had. Didn't even look at that and just said no, he's in contempt of court, and then just basically threw him away. There's just so many different weird and wonderful things about the whole idea of it, especially when you have ideas of Tommy Robinson actually saying the night before he actually did this Facebook live stream on a video that he was going to be talking about what was actually behind all of the grooming gangs and what goes up higher, and the reason why he might be taken away, so to speak. So it was either epic foreshadowing by Mr. Robinson, or he was as normal correct on most of the things that he says.
Yeah, and it shows you, like, with the Dankula thing and countless other cases, that judges are accountable to fucking no one. There's, even aside from the Dankula case, I remember these, there's these, is it home order or something? You know the thing they do where you're under house arrest for terrorism?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there was a guy in, it was one of the mainstream papers they put this in, which shocked me. It might have been the Independent. And there was this guy who had been tried under the terrorism law thing, who'd not committed any crime,
Yeah.
and they just put him on one of these orders because you don't have any right to a trial if you're put on one of these, because they're meant to be an emergency measure, but there's no time limit on them.
Yeah.
And so they put him on this, and he was living. He got off it, and he was able to write a letter about it to the newspaper, and he was saying there were people on his street who were radical Islamic preachers, and he was a secular Muslim who was put on this thing, and they were going around, with their Sharia this and,
Yeah.
your wife in a cupboard that, and he was like, they're not using these orders to catch terrorists, they're using these orders on moderates.
Yes. And the reasons why they're using it, not to go too far into a different idea on the stream, we can do that another day. But the reasons why they are doing it on the moderates is because the police are actually scared of taking on these people that are extremists, because they know they're going to get trouble from it. Sargon's video recently, I think it was about, 3, 4, 5 days ago maybe, where he was actually talking about the fact of a moderate was a Muslim woman that was actually part of a special task force, and she was pointing all this out to people. The fact that there was a woman as well that was pointing out that some Muslims couldn't actually, or no religious people could actually pray in Hyde Park, for instance, where you have all of the free speech rallies and everything. And she pointed out, well, why are they allowed to pray? And she pointed everything out, and she was taken away, and nobody's ever heard from her since. I don't know how true that is. Maybe she just decided to stay off of the internet or something. I don't really know. But it's just so interesting that everything's designed to show face rather than actually just do what they're supposed to do, Justice League. And I think that's the same thing with Tommy Robinson.
I've got to wonder about the police thing as well. You know, like, are we? I doubt it'll happen. I think something worse will happen before this happens, just because the structure is so strong. But there's such a disconnect between the police and the people who control the police. And I don't just mean the politicians and judges. I do mean the high-ranking non-active police officers, like your inspectors and stuff like that, who have desk jobs, and the actual police they send to do these things. Because I reckon, you know, if you let them off the leash, they'd be in before you and me. But they can't. They actually can't. And then obviously, if a policeman does something, it's 10 times worse.
Yep.
You know, they go. You know, because you're seen to be going against your own, and then the criminals in the jail will have you. You know, so it's like, I think something big's gonna have to happen in the police, or something worse will happen in the public.
No, I actually completely agree with that. I mean, if you look at anything to do with Telford, Rotherham, or any of the bigger cases that have been had specific government reports on them, all of them state that the police had some role, if not were heavily complicit in the idea of hiding evidence. You also have evidence of the councils or local MPs, or at least local social services, being involved in some way or form of knowing what was going on and hiding evidence from it. So when Tommy Robinson comes out and says, "Oh, you may not hear of me ever again because I've got something to tell you," and the government's not going to like it, one can presume, not necessarily to know, but one can presume that maybe the government's had something to do with this, especially when you have a video by yours truly where you have Savage Javid that actually comes out and says, "No, the Home Office knew about everything from 2002, 16 years ago." So
yeah, I heard a thing today as well. It's maybe a bit, it's a bit soon for you to comment on it, because I've only just read the thing, but it's basically saying Jeremy Corbyn was alerted and acknowledged a similar thing in his borough.
Yeah.
So he won't meet with Donald Trump, but he'll apologise for pedos, and he'll meet with Hamas.
Well, that's the thing, though, isn't it? I mean, you also have Sadiq Khan that was, what was it? He was taking a mayor's question time, so to speak. And a couple of, you had UKIP, Labour and Conservatives asking him the same question. It was to do with political protests from Hamas, as in they were having a flag that has a gun on it. And obviously the terrorist organisation or section of Hamas is obviously banned everywhere. But the political section, even though it's banned in nigh on every country in Europe, it's not banned in England, the political side of Hamas. So they're allowed to actually hold that flag and actually pass it around and wave it, and the police can't do anything about it because they'll just say, "No, we're doing it as the political flag, not the terrorist flag." And all of these, as I said, the UKIP, the Conservatives, and even Labour themselves, all asked Sadiq Khan, "Will you write to Amber Rudd when she was Home Secretary?" That it was a case of, will you write to her and actually say, we need to have a reconscripture of what actually is Hamas now? It's just amazing how different things go forward. But we're actually here to talk about Tommy. As much as I do love going into tangents, we're here to talk about Tommy.
I'm just saying it's time to go 1605, but that's just me.
1777 will commence again.
Oh, God.
No, we want to actually have a successful 1605 this time.
Yeah.
It would definitely give the next politicians in line something to think about.
It definitely would. You're correct on that. It definitely would. Before that we actually go any further, I think it's probably a good idea if we actually have a look at the actual story that's been produced by The Independent. That way we can get some facts together, or as factual as a mainstream newspaper can actually be nowadays.
You left out the other part of their name. It's The Independent of Reality.
True. I would actually have to agree with that. The Independent of Reality. They are definitely void of reality most of the time. But on this occasion, they seem to have actually been able to report on this quite well. So you have Tommy Robinson appeal. Police bracing for potential disorder as appeal judges decide whether to free far-right leader. I mean, don't get me wrong. We all know that they're going to be putting in this far-right leader, ex-founding member or founder of the EDL and all stuff like that. They're going to be doing all that because obviously they need to try and discredit him. So I would actually play the video, but my audio would not actually pick it up, and nor would my microphone, because I'm using a headset, so it wouldn't actually work. So we won't do the video. So police are bracing for the possibility of mass protests and disorders over Tommy Robinson's appeal results. Backers of the far-right leader have threatened to riot if he's not freed from prison. I Court of Appeal judges on Wednesday following violence and arrests at previous protests. Metropolitan Police Commissioner Carissa Dick, love her name, it's just amazing, said the force had made contingencies for potential issues. And obviously quotations of there. We're not actually really interested into that point. But what we are interested in is this bit here. Lord Chief Justice and two other justices will be ruling on the claims by Robinson's lawyers that he should be released because of alleged prejudicial differences. In other words, he was treated completely different to other innocent and to proven guilty people. He was just put into a court and basically thrown into the slammer without actually having proper court hearing. In two cases that led to him being jailed for contempt of court. Robinson appeared at a hearing on the 18th of July via video link from prison and spoke only to confirm his real name, which I really don't understand why they put that in there, and I'm not going to say his real name because they're doing that to scare him and intimidate him, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, they always use this as a weapon against him. They always say, oh, he just keeps changing his name because he's so notorious. It's like, maybe you should look at why he changes his name. Oh wait, you keep that one quiet, don't you? Because the reason he keeps changing his name is people try and kill him because they're
and his family, which is the main reason why he changes his name. He says it all the time. If it was just him, he would use his real name all the time. The reason why he uses an alias is because he has his family threatened, and he's got children as well as obviously his wife. The last thing that you want to do is have somebody try and behead them because they're getting annoyed at Tommy.
Yeah, it just gets my goat how these people who've never stood for a thing in their lives will like scoff at him changing his name and use it as a weapon against him when it's actually quite tragic, you know?
Yeah.
Fucking arseholes. Sorry, shit. Ah! I'm myself right now.
It's alright. It's not an LBP stream, so it's fine. It's absolutely fine. It's not going on that one. I feel that would actually be held against me for the rest of my life. No, but the reason why I'm reading these two stories, because I'm going to be doing another story as well, which is the Sky News story. Not straight after, because I want to talk about this propaganda piece as well, to be fair. But I wanted to show you the actual differences between one that's trying to report the news with having hidden agendas to it, and one that's just got an agenda. Yeah, his barristers, Jeremy Dine, QC, called on the judges to overturn contempt findings from May 2017 and May 2018 and to order Robinson's release. There has been a conglomeration of procedural differences that have given rise to prejudice, and should see. I did so well with conglomeration, which
I have to congratulate you for that. I was waiting for you to read that part, but you just said it perfectly. So well done.
Yeah, then I fucked it up with prejudiced.
Well, nobody's perfect.
I'm definitely not. And should lead to both findings being squashed, he told the court. Robinson was handed a 3-month suspended sentence for attempting to film defendants at Canterbury Crown Court during a rape trial, which actually wasn't true. He was actually there reporting on the trial and waiting for the defendants to leave and to finish to find out what the verdict was. But, you know, I'm sure they know more than what Tommy was actually saying he was there for. Which was activated and lengthened Yeah, sorry, I get weirded out by some of the language they use. It's not language that I would normally use. Activated and lengthened after he violated a blanket reporting restriction at Leeds Crown Court in May. He did not intend to breach any reporting restrictions order, albeit that he was aware that there was an order. Mr. Dean told the court, claiming that Robinson was operating as a journalist and attempting to be legally vagrant, whatever that is. Vigilant. I'll get there. I was just annoyed by the fact that they have to put operating as a journalist in quotation marks. He is a fucking journalist.
Yeah.
And he identified himself as one at the scene multiple times as well.
He's got all of his licenses. He used to work for Rebel Media as well as a journalist, and that's the reason why he goes around and does his Facebook stuff, because he went off it to be independent.
I just think that it's fucking ridiculous that we even have to have press passes and all that shit. You know, freedom of speech and freedom to report the news should be universal. It shouldn't be a thing like, okay, if you're reporting on a Theresa May press conference, okay, that's a bit different. But this is, and how draconian is that? A blanket reporting restriction at Leeds Crown Court? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, there are two ways of looking at it, though. Unfortunately, there is two ways, and one of the ways is what they've actually said, that if you actually report on it before it's finished, you can then do something to absolutely destroy the case, unfortunately, and the case then comes null and void. But personally, the BBC and things like that, and ITV and other news organisations were already there, and the Daily Mail and places like that were already there. They weren't necessarily taking video, but then again, in the hour and a half video that was played on Facebook Live, he didn't really show the entrance. He didn't really show people entering and leaving.
No, and you see on the BBC all the time, they'll have the guys coming out with their jackets over their head and everything, and the reporters are trying to jump up to the prison van to get the flash camera through the windows. So it's, you know, it's quite clear that they try and cover their faces, but if they get a good mugshot of you, then it's your own stupid fault, you know. And that's, I guess that's maybe the way it should be. Maybe it isn't, but it should be the same for everybody.
No, you see, you're forgetting one little thing. Muslims.
Yep. I don't think we're forgetting it. I just think that we're trying to find the rationale, but then realizing that there is no such thing as rationale.
Or more point, we're trying to eliminate the rationale because they're, you know.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it is exactly what you said. It's because they don't want to report on the fact that this is widespread, and the fact that people like Tommy Robinson are actually still reporting on it, even though that the government has put into different reports and found that the reports are completely and utterly damning, and then deciding to leave those places because the reports are damning. I'm looking at Newcastle properly, to be fair.
Well, you see, I want to bring up a point here. This is because we are egalitarians. We can understand and accept that it doesn't matter who you are, from whatever race, religion, or creed, you can be a fucking shitty person. You know, that's what we egalitarians believe. Unfortunately, people in the press, government, and so on are not egalitarians. They don't. They want to keep the poor brown people from ever being offended or admitting brown people can commit a crime, which is just fucking ludicrous. 1605.
Something along those lines. Yeah.
The other thing is that if you're, and I completely agree with Voice of One, but see if your case is so flimsy that merely the act of it being reported on will destroy it, you don't have a case. It's beyond reasonable doubt. If there's jury restrictions and there's restrictions on the judge, and they are enough that they are not allowed to look at anything in regard to the case, and that is enough. And if somehow somebody reporting on it could have some kind of butterfly effect onto the case and just collapse it like a house of cards, then that's exactly what you've got, is a house of cards and not a legal case.
Yeah, I mean, the way that they try to... well, I'll just read it. It's easier. The Court of Appeal heard that footage of Robinson discussing the ongoing case caused jury deliberations to be paused, which isn't actually true. It actually finished at 3:30 that day, even though Tommy Robinson was actually taken away in a prison van. It still finished with or without him. That's the reason why he was there, because it was actually supposed to finish on that day. But whatever. Sparking an attempt by defense lawyers to have jurors dismissed. In other words, to have a retrial. Mr. Dean also claimed his client was effectively being held in. Sorry, this is obviously about Tommy Robinson afterwards, which is still interesting. Mr. Dean also claimed his client was effectively being held in solitary confinement at HMP only, with limited access to telephones, visits, and rehabilitation activities. But he acknowledged the restrictions had been imposed in good faith, because everybody that believed in a certain faith was out to get Tommy Robinson, and it was to protect Robinson from potential attacks by other prisoners that had a certain religion.
Yeah, at least they, it wasn't good what they did, but at least they acknowledged that in the report for a change. And there's another thing is that pedos get in just fine. They get on just fine in prison, no special measures or assault.
Oh, that's not true. Sorry, Soap. That's not true. When paedophiles actually go in, they go to particular prisons, where most of them are paedophiles, and if they can't go into particular prisons, they're actually told that they have a different crime. That's how they get protected.
They have segregated blocks though as well in the
Yes.
larger prisons, and so I
Yes.
don't see why you could. We're going to have to start having a political prisoner block for him and Lawrence Southern and Stephen Molyneux and whoever else they want to throw in the slammer just for the wrong thing.
Yeah, I mean, luckily enough for Lawrence Southern, she's just not allowed in the country rather than actually being held
They
by the country.
detained her first though, didn't they? Or was that the other girl?
No, they detained. No, they detained Lawrence Southern. Brittany Pettibone. They just told flat outright that she wasn't allowed in with her boyfriend.
Yeah, I think Lawrence Southern. I think they detained her and then sent her home and then banned her, which is hilarious. I mean,
yeah, it was absolutely ridiculous. It was just absolutely ridiculous. The reasons why she was fucking banned, because she was asking Muslims if Allah was gay, or could Allah be gay. Could God be gay? That's ridiculous in a secular country, in a liberal country, so to speak.
Well, not to break your little flow there, but it's like this. I think it's fucking ludicrous. Like, saying Allah is gay, yeah, that might offend some Muslims. But all I would say to the Muslims who are offended are, prove your God exists. If you can't prove he exists, you can't, get all fucking wanky about it.
I'm completely and utterly with you, mate. I mean, as everybody knows on my channel and everything, I am definitely not a religious guy by any set or any sort of ideology or in anything. I'm just not religious at all. I don't believe in the ideology at all. But if you're going to have it from an argument of saying, well, they are religious, so their God exists to them, in inverted air commas, it's a case of, well, if your God does exist, is there not a chance that he could be gay, as he does create in your ideology gay people? So could he not be gay in himself?
Well, the whole thing was a reaction to the same leaflet being printed about Jesus.
Yes.
So that's all it was. It was just a lampoon. It was an act of comedy. It wasn't even a genuine question.
Yeah.
It was a satire, and it should have been protected as such.
Yep.
And to be honest, it just shows you that they're not good Muslims, in my opinion, because if I believed that Allah was the supreme creator of heaven and earth and everything else in the universe, I don't think he would give a shit what some blonde girl from Canada thought, and I would know that. So they can't be really that very devout Muslims, can they?
Well, no, I'd actually go even a step further on that one. If the religion of peace is supposed to be so tolerant and so peaceful, so to speak, and yes, I know where everybody's going to go, but just let me finish my point. If it is supposed to be so peaceful, then why is it a case that if somebody is to say that the first reaction of the police is to try and get people like Lawrence Southern out of the way, because they're fearing for their lives or fearing a disturbance of the peace, as in riots could erupt. If it's such a peaceful religion, why are they so afraid by what somebody says to the reaction of the people that it's being said to?
Oh yeah, I'm with you there, and also the lies of it, right? Because see, imagine the difference in this country. Imagine the difference, and I think this would go a long way to actually healing a lot of the damage done by multiculturalism. Culturalism. Not, I don't mean, you know, I mean the political doctrine, multiculturalism.
No.
And if the police were to just say, and the politicians were just to say, look, we're getting you out of the country because we don't know that we can protect you, and there are too many of them, and we have a serious problem on our hands, and the public are at risk, as are you. If they were just open about that, people would be like, oh, this isn't good. Maybe we should do something about it. But because there's this constant, like, and this is the thing, is like, depending on the level of conspiracy, there is obviously a level, where reason kind of stops. But there's a conspiracy for you. The press, the politicians, the police, and all the councillors, and pretty much everybody else in public life, all have the same consensus, yet reality doesn't match that. And that's like, 6 or 7 different professions conspiring to make the public believe something that is not true, and we can prove it's not true.
Yep, I completely and utterly agree with you. That's the reasons why they won't tell people what's actually going on, because it destroys their ideology, it destroys their worldview. I just wanted to show everybody these pictures, not all of them, just this one in particular, the one that's right in the middle, the Tommy Robinson protesting pictures. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to say that all of these lovely chaps through gritted teeth are going to be innocent of every crime or any crime, but if you look, who are the ones that are turning away and trying to shield themselves, and who are the ones that look like they're physically attacking? In that picture, if people can see it.
I completely agree with you, mate. It does look like the police are the more aggressors there, doesn't it?
Well, there's quite, if for the police to be raising their batons, there's quite a big space in the middle there, isn't there? Yeah. If they were fighting them back, so to speak, then they must have already done a really good job, and for them to keep on going, they're abusing their power.
Yeah.
What does anybody else think on that one?
I'm trying to get a good look at that photograph because I'm on my phone.
Sorry. What about you, Voice of One?
Well, for a start, I don't think they need to be swinging their fucking clubs in the first place. I mean, they're all standing around, and this isn't Antifa. They're, trying to, whatever's happening here, there's no, look at the left-hand side, no masks, just T-shirts, no weapons, nothing. And the police are going ape shit with their buttons. I think... I think if I had to say who's to blame, I would say easily 60-40 to the police. Police are more likely to get aggressive with these, white people than they are. I guarantee you, see if that whole thing was Muslims and black people, there'd have been none of these buttons pulled. That I can guarantee you.
Yeah, but the police wouldn't even have been there in the first place.
Or they'd have been in riot gear behind shields and not told not to move.
Yeah.
Like, so, don't move back, don't move forward, just you stand there. That's what...
I think that's just...
Well, as it's conspiracy night, I've got a quick question for you. Do you reckon that, as you can see in these pictures, most of the people at this point in time, at least in this picture, look like they're being very peaceful? At least at this moment in time. I'm not saying that they were all the way through, but in this picture, they look very peaceful, at least for the most part.
Well, just look at the faces. There's not really much.
Apart from one.
There's one or two. There's one blurry-looking guy, one angry-looking guy, and the rest of them are kind of just standing there.
But my point was going to be, do you reckon that these were at the beginning of the rally, so to speak, and it was a case of enticing and angering the actual people that were there to protest, which, if they knew that they would anger them, would end up having more and more of them try and turn on the police and turn it into a riot, so to speak. So it would cause propaganda to already be written about them, but it would be controlled propaganda, as in it would be, we know what you're going to do if we push this button, so we're going to push this button to be able to write a narrative for you anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, I fully expect that would have been in the back of a lot of their minds. I mean, this is the thing, is people, you don't really need to dig too deep to find the conspiracy. Just go up to somebody and go, what do you think of Tommy Robinson? Just do it and see what happens, and then see if you think we're being mental to think that the judge had it out for this guy and the police have it out for this guy, and then look at what he says and what he's done and see if that matches reality. You'll find that Tommy Robinson's account of events seems to match reality a hell of a lot. I used to hate him. I used to think he was a complete arsehole until I actually listened to him as opposed to the people talking for him.
Yep, no, I'm completely and utterly with you on that one, to be fair. I never really used to like Tommy Robinson too much. I bought into the propaganda of, oh, he's racist, he's this, and that. I didn't really listen to what he ever said. He's an angry man. He's just saying it out of spite and everything else like that from what I used to watch from him and that. And then I actually listened to what he said. And though I didn't agree with all of it, and though I didn't agree with his generalizations, it was a case of, there's nothing racist in here. There's nothing even Islamophobic in here. So why is everybody so against him? And then you do a little bit more digging and you realize the reason why everybody's against him isn't for what he's saying. It's for what it actually draws as a connotation. As in, if what he says is true, then why is it taking this long for everybody else to not tell us? Why is it a white man from Luton that has absolutely nothing, that's been convicted of whatever, is telling us what's actually truthful, but yet our media and our government is not even doing anything? I think that's the divide that happens from most people. The divide is that nobody really wants to believe that their governments or police or media would actually forcibly lie to them. And yet, this is proof from Tommy Robinson that most of them would lie about what's going on, at least in my opinion anyway.
Yeah, and they would feel justified in doing so, and that it was necessary for them to, because, like what we discussed last time we were streaming, or maybe the time before, it's that thing of they'll just, because they're ideologues, they will use anything to justify what they're doing, and no matter how corrupt their actions become, they'll always justify it with the ideology. And this is same thing in this case. Is like, okay, we may have just used babies as ammunition, but he was evil, damn it.
Yeah, he was evil. He's absolutely evil. He completely went against all of our ideologies, and we just hate him for it. Ridiculous.
And it's why I have no sympathy for them as well, because you're in the same boat. I was in the same boat. I thought he was an evil, nasty piece of work. I thought, you know what? No, I'm going to listen to this interview that he's done, because it was with somebody that I watched anyway. I couldn't remember who it was, but it was with somebody I knew wasn't full of shit, and I was like, okay, fair enough. Like it was Dave Rubin or something like that. Somebody who wasn't biased. And sure enough, it was a good interview, and I came away with nothing but respect for the guy. And I was like, wow, that can't be right. He was obviously just talking his way out of everything, and it wouldn't be like that in real life. But you go and check up on what he says, and it's all true. He's all squeaky clean. Well, not squeaky clean. That's one of the things I actually like about him. And he never gives up, and he won't be drawn on racial bullshit, because people try. Like, people try and get him to say racist things, and I don't mean his opponents. I mean people who are racist try and get him to agree with them, and he basically tells them to fuck off, Yeah. And it's like, that demolished a little bit of my worldview, because I then had to change my mind, change what I thought of him, and then realize I couldn't trust every single person who told me he was bad. Yeah. And like what we were saying before, it's a painful thing to do, but I did it, and everybody else has the capacity to do it, and they should be doing it.
No, I completely and utterly agree with you, mate. I completely and utterly agree. Does anybody else have anything else to say on this point at this moment in time, as in what we were just talking about?
Well, I don't know how relevant it is, but quite frankly, going back to the politicians thing, if anybody listening to this actually believes a word that comes out of a politician's mouth, I'm sorry, you're a fucking idiot. Never believe anything any politician says to you ever. Always check it out for yourself.
Even when I become a politician, check everything out that I'm saying.
No, when he becomes a politician, listen and believe. Listen and believe.
No, I'd always tell everybody to fact check me, because it might be the case that I've formulated an idea or a motion on false information, or maybe even a biased point of information. Point is that we all need to share.
Like the bias towards Americans that I see. It took half an hour of harassing you to get the link. What the fuck common sense is that?
Who was harassing me? Nobody harassed me. I just see you fucking bitching. I saw you bitching in the fucking comment section. It was just like, oh, for fuck's sake, here you go, man. Fuck off.
Well, I'm glad that you embrace Chamberlain's path of appeasement. That really works for Britain.
It doesn't. It really doesn't.
No, but today is a good day. Tommy is free. I mean, let's bathe in that success for a second, really, because next he goes back to court and they might arrest him again.
Well, that's kind of why I was only commenting on a personal level, because all the people, machinery, and biases that put him in the position he was in are still there and will still be used against him and others. So I can't feel celebratory on any level other than thank fuck the guy's okay. But everything else is still fucked as it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And I saw the little clip with Lauren Southern. He immediately went and saw her. Oh, that's a little odd. I figured he goes to his wife.
No. Lauren Southern was the first one to post about it, but he did not go and see her straight away. He did not go and see her at all, as far as I'm aware. She's still in another country, as far as I'm aware. It was an excerpt for when they used to work together on Rebel Media.
Okay, my apologies then. Sorry about that.
Or maybe not. Maybe not Rebel Media, but no, it definitely wasn't for that day anyway. Because Tommy Robinson doesn't look anything like that at this moment in time. He's lost so much weight, you wouldn't recognise him without being told.
That's why I was asking you if they'd Kokeshed him, because I don't know if the audience are familiar with Adam Kokesh, but what happened? He was the one that went to Washington with his gun out on the 4th of July to celebrate the Second Amendment, and what they did was the police knew that he was this big burly Marine, quite high up in the Marines, and they were just like, fuck, we're going to just feed him a starvation diet, like make sure he's no trouble, do what we like to him. And I think they've probably done the same thing in this case, so that if Tommy does get set upon, he's in no position to defend himself, seeing as we're conspiracy theorying tonight.
Yeah.
Well, no. With Adam Kokesh, though, I saw that video where he racked the shotgun in the park in D.C. He knew what he was getting into, but they didn't arrest him that day. They went and raided his fucking house about 3 weeks later. And then
they got him on some
BS
drugs thing as well when it was warrantless. And yeah, I heard about all that, but I was just meaning the actual prison thing of deliberately starving him, but not to death.
Yeah. I'll get back to Tommy Robinson quite quickly. I just wanted to read the next couple of paragraphs just to try and show everybody what's actually been, even in for something that's supposed to be a little bit less biased than what BBC and Sky is in The Independent. This is still to do with Tommy Robinson's case, and this is still to do with his lawyer, Dean, talking to the press about it. He said the case was a question of substance, not form, adding there is nothing in the rules to suggest an order or finding of contempt is invalidated in a particular aspect of the rules is not complied with. Police officers kept a watchful eye on a small group of Free Tommy protesters who gathered outside the Royal Courts of Justice during the hearing, as other supporters sat in the court. MPs and campaigners have warned that far-right extremists, apparently, are using the case as a rallying point to create a new, racist street movement. Yeah, okay. Amid rising hate crimes and Islamophobic attacks.
I'd like
Where
to see some statistics for that, because the only racially or sort of religiously motivated attacks I'm seeing are Muslims against Jews.
or
Well, no.
labor against Jews.
Can I throw an idea in here, though? I don't necessarily think they're wrong. And this is why. When you have a political backlash against a certain segment of the population, in this case, the British, the British people themselves, the actual English people, they're going to be backed against the wall, and they're going to retaliate in some way. So if you're seeing a rise in street crime in accordance to the rise in these rape gangs, there is a correlation there, and it's the pushback from the native British people saying to knock this shit fucking off, and the police won't do anything about it, so I fucking will. Is that bad? Yeah. Vigilante justice is bad, but is it expected? Damn fucking right it is.
Yeah, can I come back on that quickly, actually?
Sure.
And I will be quick. Firstly, very good points. And secondly, the points I want to come back on are, well, firstly, yeah, some of them probably are alt-right, and I mean that in the sense that you and me would use the word alt-right, or phrase alt-right, in that, but it's still a lie, in the sense that I can say, you've just landed on Earth. Oh, hi, welcome Earth. By the way, humans are schizophrenic. It's like, well, yeah, a very small number of them are, and it's true, but you can't just say humans are schizophrenic and leave it there, because it's only like a 0.1% or whatever. And the other thing is that why would anyone care about a rise in crime in this country when we've seen what constitutes a crime now?
Mm-hmm. That was going to be my point, actually. Was the point of when Mad Dodge says something along the lines of, "Oh, that these crimes are coming up." Yeah, I'll go and take your point and say these crimes are actually being perpetrated by people. Does it mean that they're racist? Does it mean they're Islamophobic? Because that's the reasons they're prescribing for what they're supposed to be doing or supposedly have done.
Yeah, for all we know, it's just that they have the wrong kind of dog and the wrong kind of video.
Well, no, to me, being in defense of your daughters and not wanting them to get raped is not Islamophobic. But if you have a no-go zone in your city, i.e. London or Manchester, then, I mean, what exactly are you going to fucking do other than fight back? I mean, you guys can't even carry a butter knife on you. I mean, how are you supposed to defend yourself or give your daughter something to defend herself with? It's ridiculous. I expect a rise in violence to correlate with the rise in stupidity of your government.
I'd still disagree with that point, especially as a rising hate crime. I think the statistic is around about 120% rise in hate crime, but that also takes into account the internet rather than actual proper hate crimes where...
And that figure is reported, not goes to court or convicted or arrested or anything like that.
Yes. And as for Islamophobic attacks, it's a case of what constitutes now as an Islamophobic attack. Somebody that is now going onto the internet and actually saying to certain Muslims that may preach out hatred or support of ISIS or things like that, that they might be wrong. And the fact that their religion is not particularly great on that aspect. And that could be classified as Islamophobic attacks nowadays. Now, I'm not trying to downplay what they're trying to say, as in people may be experiencing hate crimes, proper hate crimes, and some people may be being attacked just because they're Muslim. Maybe that is true. But at the same time, are they doing it because they're racist? Or are they doing it as what Mad Dodge has actually suggested and said, as a retaliation of what's actually going on? Because what they're trying to suggest in The Independent is that it's a racist street movement and it's causing these hate crimes and Islamophobic attacks. Not because it's a reaction, but because they are racist. And that's where I disagree completely and utterly with that statement. It's not because they're racist.
I just doubt it's even happening. I honestly do, because the whole point you mentioned the no-go zones, right? Well, what's the deal with them? The no-go zones are places you cannot go because if you do, you'll get the shit kicked out of you or killed, right? That has terrorized people into not doing anything. So what happens when people are not doing anything is they are not being violent or anything else for that matter because they're terrified. So I would actually doubt that these things are even happening at all. And then, the other thing is like alt-right, what does that mean anymore? And, violence, what does that mean anymore? Street hate crime, what does that mean anymore? Because they've worn out these terms like a pair of old socks to the point where I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And, with Count Dankula combined with Sargon and all that, an alt-right street movement hate criming on Muslims could be an old liberal lady posting on Twitter for all I know.
Yeah.
Well, no, and I don't necessarily agree with the whole idea of hate crimes at all. I believe the hate crime sock, as you put it in your analogy, was worn out before it was even put on. The idea that you can charge me not because I bashed somebody's head in with a baseball bat, but because that person was Hispanic, and then you're going to attribute that as my motive and put me away for 20 extra years is quite ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd like to point out at this stage that Muslims are not a race. Therefore, it's not racism.
Well said. Yep, no, well said. Though,
a lot of these people they're worried about in the prisons are indeed white converts as well. So, yeah, like you say, it's not a race.
It's definitely not. Well, no religion is a race. It's like trying to say that all Christians are white. It's like, no, a majority are, but that doesn't mean that they are. It's a white religion. It just means that it's a religion that happens to have a lot of white people in it. The same as Muslim is a religion that happens to have a lot of brown people in it. It doesn't mean that it's a race. But I still disagree with the point of a hate crime. I mean, I don't even think that it should be in place as the point, but for the actual reasons why it's there to find out a motive and prescribe a motive to what happened, I completely agree with that. But I don't agree that it should add on extra time for it.
Yeah, I think it should be taken into account during an investigation, but that's all. Because what you do is you pick favourites under the law, which is the complete opposite of what the law is for. Everybody's meant to be equal under the law, but you're saying that not only is a white person or let's not say white, let's just say a normal person, they're devalued by this, and then your select victim group is elevated by it. And not only that, they can then weaponize the thing, because they can get themselves, the way it works in Britain, if I go and punch somebody in the face and they punch me back, we both get done for assault. But if I'm a protected species, then I can say, yes, but he not only will you do with him with assault, but you will do him with hate crime as well. And I've known of cops who've actually had to work very hard to get the hate crime thing taken out of consideration because they've there's been a bar fight and the person's tried to make it a racial incident, and the police have had to, because of their own integrity as well, work quite hard to go, no, that's not going in the report.
No, I completely not agree with that. Does anybody else have anything to say on this subject at all? And I'm looking at you, Mr. Jensen Quinn, as you haven't said fuck all for a while.
To be honest, I haven't said anything because I pretty much agree with most of you guys are saying. I can sit here and do the old sounding board. Yes, you're right, but that's just a complete waste of time.
But we love it.
No, you're correct.
Okay, let me exercise your muscles then, Mr. Jensen Quinn, because this occurred to me. I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Go on it.
We all hate the hate crime thing, but what if, and I mean this genuine as a question because I could see the pros and cons of it, what if, with the hate crime thing, say you saw a massive, we can all agree, everybody in the universe can agree anti-Semitism is a bad thing, right? So we've got the massive spike in crime against Jewish people. And we say, right, for the next 2 years, any violent crime against a Jewish person will have an extra amount of jail time on it. And then that brings it down, and then you get rid of it. Would you be in favour of that, or should it just not be done at all?
No. No, and I'll tell you why.
Mad
Because
Dodge. The question was asked to Jensen Quinn.
fine, right.
First off, no, that's a really bad idea because the moment you segregate in any way, whether it be a beneficial segregation or not, you still cause even more troubles than you thought you was going to fix. Go ahead, Mad Dodge. You're obviously gagging to say something.
Oh no, it's fine. I have a gag order on this one, I guess.
No, you
Take
don't
him
have
away, boys.
You don't have a gag order, my friend. It's just that when a question is specifically asked to somebody, it's normally polite to let that person answer it.
Fair enough. I got up to grab a beer and I came back and heard the question, not who it was addressed to. But
that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
That's
fair enough.
Okay,
I would like
if
to
you
hear
really-
everybody's thoughts on that one, though. That's fine.
Sure.
Yeah. If you want to hear my answer, the answer is no, and this is why. Once you grant the government the right to create a new process within the criminal justice system, they will not stop at 2 years. They will expand that to 20 years, and then 40, 50, and then forever. And that's exactly how we got the anti-black hate crimes. And now if you look at what happened in Philadelphia with that one kid, you know, the white kid who was tortured and made to drink toilet water and had his scalp cut and told to yell, "I hate white people" and "fuck Donald Trump." But that wasn't a hate crime at all. What if it was the other way around and a Jewish man was doing that to a fucking Muslim? What if he was making him eat a fucking BLT and saying, you know, fuck Muhammad and forced him to draw a fucking picture? That wouldn't be a hate crime at that point, though, right? Because it's not against a Jewish person. And then you have to expand it to include the Muslims. And then you include everybody other than the majority, which would be the white English population. And then you have the same thing we have going on here in America and, you know, all of Western civilization. It's just a slippery slope that you should never even start to fucking descend.
Okay, can I just point out or use a little bit of logic here? But I hate to tell the police, but every crime is a hate crime. I mean, if I'm going to punch someone, regardless of their race, religion, etc., I'm punching them because I hate them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think calling them hate crimes is a bit redundant. You know, if I'm attacking a Jew, that's because he's a Jew, therefore you can call it anti-Semitic. But if I'm just hitting the Jewish man because he stole my pint, you know, again, so I think the hate term thing is a bit overused. If you know
Well,
what I mean.
I don't know though, because there was all these trucks of peace going around, and they're crimes, but they're crimes of peace, are they not? So
No, they're definitely crimes of hatred. It's just a case of exactly what I'd actually have to agree with Voice of One on this one, which is shocking. But no, any crime that is done to somebody is a crime of prejudice. If you're going to rob something from an old woman, you are targeting that old woman because you know that she's probably weaker, probably frail, and probably an easier mark than the woman or the man that's also got bags around their necks.
you sexist bugger.
I would probably say ageist. I would probably say ageist more than sexist. But that's the point. It's the point that any crime that's committed against a person has a level of prejudice against it. Sometimes it's a level of pre-motivated prejudice, and sometimes it's just a prejudice of an instant and complete and utter reaction to something that's happened, as what Voice of One already suggested. If somebody has punched me in the face, I'm going to punch them back, but I'm still going to punch them because I hate them at that moment in time. It may even be my best mate at that point in time, but because he's hit me, I'm going to have an instant reaction to it and have a prejudice towards him.
Yep, I agree with all that. I just thought it was an interesting question. I want to hear people answer it.
That is very interesting.
But yeah, I think just to bring it back round to the main report for you, Mr. CSG. It's we don't know how we don't. No, we do. They don't have a clue what they're talking about when they use these terms. You know,
Well,
they don't know what the alt-right is. They don't know what a hate crime is. They don't have a clue. Because the fact that we were able to spend so long on that tells you that they can't possibly know what it means, because otherwise they wouldn't have put that in their print.
The thing is, when the left go and say that, oh, they're dog whistling, when they write in these columns and these papers and these media institutions that, oh, the alt-right or the Nazis or hate crimes or Islamophobic or Islamophobia or xenophobia or whatever, when they're writing these, they are dog whistling to the left. It's not a case of the right only do it to themselves, or the centre do it to themselves, or the left do it to themselves. Everybody does these certain amount of words that are able to entice an instant connotation of what it's supposed to mean to them. If the ideology is to the point of you have a hate crime, then you naturally assume of a white person trying to hit a black person. That's because you have been embedded into that ideology. Where nowadays, if you're on a righter side of politics or you're right of centre, you then have the ideology or the connotation of it being the case of, okay, well, you said hate crime, so you probably mean somebody sending you a vicious tweet on the internet. Just because somebody says those words, different people have different connotations from it, and we denote different ideologies from it. So that's all I'd have to really say to that.
Well, real quick, I was reading what you have on the screen here. A neoconservative U.S. think tank claimed that it funded both protests and Robinson's legal costs, while his former employers at Rebel Media are also crowdfunding in his name. Is that kind of like the thing where, you know, Al Qaeda claims responsibility for every crazy Muslim throughout the world? I mean, or did a neoconservative U.S. think tank actually fund the protests? Which I don't see him as a neoconservative. I don't see why they would fund that. Or am I just crazy?
No, I think it would be in the neoconservatives' interest to have Tommy shut up and put away as well, as much as the left. I think you're right. And the other thing is, you can see the double standards again, because you well noticed that they used this terming of, you know, backer and shady dealings and, you know, funding, and whereas if it was, you know, one of their purse puppy victim people, it would be a concerned citizen or a philanthropic human rights group. You know what I mean? Concerned citizens banded together.
They love to stick their labels on, don't they?
Exactly, they're dog whistles, they're labels.
They've even turned the word dog whistle into a dog whistle as well. That always makes you laugh.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what Mad Dodge has absolutely just pointed out is absolutely true. It's a case of they're trying to draw false equivalencies between the idea of people on the left thinking, oh, a neoconservative is funding this. Oh, that's bad. That's a case of maybe ISIS trying to train other people into taking responsibility for what happened and blah, blah, blah. I completely agree with that assessment, actually, to be fair. And as for the fact of going a little bit further, Robinson has been forming links with the American alt-right, which characterizes him as a citizen journalist. No, they don't categorize him. You literally have just said in the previous paragraph, while his former employers at Rebel Media, he is a journalist. And his imprisonment as a violation of freedom of speech. Yes, it was, because all you're doing was putting a gagging order on the fact of people telling and writing stories of factual information that was going on in the court. Freedom of speech is not limited, apart from obviously incitement. At least in my ideas, anyway.
No, you're absolutely right. And no, it's not the alt-right that is mad about him being imprisoned over freedom of speech. It is alt-right to a small extent, because of the English Defense League and all that. They do kind of like him. But it's also the libertarians. You also saw a lot of conservatives be like, what the fuck? He was outside a fucking rape case and you arrest him? You know, like, there's a lot of people that are really mad about the fact that, to be honest, you guys in, you know, merry old England no longer have any freedoms. You have to do what the crown tells you.
Sargon is one of the guys that kind of tacitly supports Tommy Robinson, and he's basically Gordon Brown in his political outlooks. Like, try categorizing him as alt-right.
Sargon doesn't actually really support what's been going on with Tommy Robinson.
Oh, I thought they were like a little coalition thing.
He likes him, but in every video that anybody has got Sargon to talk about Tommy Robinson, he says that he cannot support what Tommy Robinson is doing and what people are doing for Tommy Robinson because he was an idiot for getting caught in the first place.
Okay, well,
That sounds like a cop out.
my ever diminishing respect for him continues to evaporate quicker and quicker. But so does that mean that when they come for Sargon for posting a spicy meme that we have to just laugh at him for getting caught?
Yeah.
I don't think Sargon is trying to do a cop out on this point. I just think it's more of a case of he's had a look at the evidence and he's made a connection to it, thinking that okay, well maybe he did have breach of court and maybe he shouldn't have done it in this way. I don't know. I can't really speak for Sargon. I'm not going to try and speak for Sargon, but I don't think it's necessarily a case that he would leave a friend to hang out and dry, not unless he had provocation for it.
But yeah, so like maybe he was a bad example, but there are plenty of people who are completely she doesn't like him because she watches too much mainstream news, but my fucking mother thinks that what's been done to Tommy Robinson is wrong. She was thinking about voting for Jeremy Corbyn. She didn't. I managed to talk her out of it. But she was thinking about voting for Jeremy Corbyn. And she is my mother all right now.
Apparently so, mate. I just wanted to read.
They'll do
this.
that, by the way.
They will.
If I'm alt right, she's alt right for having me.
Yes, yes. For having those views must have come from somewhere. I just want to read this.
Original sin.
Exactly. Yeah. I just wanted to read this last paragraph because I think that this paragraph shows how much the rest of the world is pissed off of the authoritarianism of the UK. So Sam Brownback is said to have told Sir Kim Dorotch, the British ambassador to the US, that the UK should be more sympathetic to the former leader of the EDL, which that's not a quote, that's them putting that in there. Again, I suppose I have to say this. He hasn't been the leader of the EDL for 6 to 7 years. So, yeah, on that one. But warning that Trump, which is the most important part, warning that Trump administration might publicly criticize its allies' handling of the case. Now, remember as well, you have the UKIP leader, Gerard Batten, obviously being involved in this. And you also have the leader of the right in the Netherlands, also heavily involved in this as well. Where is he?
Oh, is that Geert Wilders?
That's the one. Yep. Yep, Geert Wilders is also involved in all of this as well. And for the simple point that you have to remember that the whole world, when Tommy Robinson was actually arrested and everybody found out he was going to prison for it, the whole world had protests in all over the world. You had protests in Australia, you had protests in New York City, you had protests mostly around the world going on. That shows you a level of disdain that's going on in the world for the less antics.
Yeah, there's a thing as well that this has provided me with a valuable sort of lesson in separating somebody's character from their arguments as well, because somebody was going on about Geert Wilders in regards to this, and they were saying, "Oh, that man's a fucking idiot," but he's, and I was like, "Yeah, but he says, I think he's an idiot as well, but he says some, spot on stuff in my opinion," and they were like, "No, he's just an idiot," and then I realized, wait, hang on, like, why is it taking me so long to realize that somebody being, it doesn't need to be Geert Wilders, I don't know that much about him, but like, somebody being an idiot or even morally reprehensible but presenting a really good fucking argument, it's still a good fucking argument. And I mean, you say this all the time as ESG, to your credit, but it was one of these things that I've always kind of practiced it and I've always known it, but I didn't really feel it until then,
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. I actually have to completely agree with you on that one. It's I hate using this as an analogy, but I'm trying to use it to shock people into the idea of it. Hitler used to say that he wanted to make sure that everybody gave up smoking cigarettes. Now, because Hitler said it, does that mean that everybody should smoke?
Mhm.
Well, I have a cigarette right now, so yes, everybody should. Hitler is bad, okay?
Okay. I love that from South Park. I really do. I'm going to quickly check what the time is, and it's just coming up to 10:15, so that's fine. I'm going to move on to what the Sky News portrayal of this is, and this was actually written at 17:31, so finished at about 5 hours ago. So why I quickly try and sort that out, because I'm an idiot and decided to start telling you what I'm going to do when I'm not even ready for it yet. So yay me on that one. There we go. So let's talk about the actual Sky News versions of this. So Tommy Robinson wins appeal over contempt sentence. I'm not even going to bother reading that.
You
Tommy
can
Robinson.
put the former EDL leader in front of anything connecting to this poor sod, can't you?
Yeah, that's the reason why I'm just not going to bother reading it, because they say it in the next paragraph, and I know that they say it further down as well. So yeah, but this is the reason why I wanted to do the Sky News version of it, because even though that we would agree, all of us would agree that the Independent probably a little bit biased and probably wrote some things that it probably shouldn't do, but let's have a look at Sky's. So Tommy Robinson has been freed from prison on bail after winning an appeal against a contempt of court conviction. Judges from the Court of Appeal squashed the finding and original 13-month sentence made in May at Leeds Crown Court. The former English defence leader, real name blah blah blah, was detained for the allegedly broadcasting on Facebook details of an ongoing trial subject to blanket reporting restrictions, apparently. He was sentenced to 10 months for contempt of court and giving a further 3 months for breaching the terms of previous suspended sentence. It's good that they really put into detail what he was arrested for. Oh, wait, no, they missed the point that he was arrested for breach of peace.
On camera, we heard him as well. I'm arresting you for breach of the peace.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, the breach of the peace does actually cover a fair array of things, but it does not cover contempt of court.
Yeah. The thing about... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just finding out where I'm going to be reading from next. Please carry on.
No, I think Jensen was about to speak up, though. Was he?
All I was going to say is you keep forgetting to add the word yet. That's
True.
the problem, the word yet. People always forget that one.
Yeah.
Well, no, and I was stuck on the fact that you guys still wear wigs. Anyway.
Yeah, so we still wear wigs in court, yes.
There's a thing that gets me about this, is that we've looked at 3 news reports, right? By journalists whose livelihood, whose lives depend on them being able to journal, are all like rabidly foaming at the mouth. I hate Tommy Robinson, and trying to defame him and say, look, he was reporting where he shouldn't have been reporting, and it's just like, yeah, isn't that terrifying to you? Isn't that terrifying that the government has reporting no-go zones? And why aren't you saying, look, it doesn't actually matter why he was there. It doesn't matter who was being, arrested for what, or what court case was going on. Our government has started engaging in anti-free speech, anti-journalism laws.
Yep.
They should be frickin' furious. They should be smearing the walls in shit with rage at this happening. And instead they're just like, hey, got you, Tommy.
Basically, yes. Good old Mike Stattleberry is fucking amazing at doing that. Absolutely love him.
That man, the term cutting your nose off to spite your face.
Yes.
That was invented for people like him.
Very much so, mate. Very, very fucking much so. Right. They said after Mr. Robinson deleted the video, there was not significant urgency to justify proceedings being taken against him. This is obviously the defense case. There was also a muddle over the nature of the contempt being considered and the process was flawed. The process was flawed. The judges add. So this is actually from Sky that tried to make it less important than what it already is. So let's just go over that just one more time for people to get it, because I didn't get it the first time I read it either. There was also a muddle over the nature of the contempt being considered. In other words, over the actual proceedings and the reasons why he was there.
A muddle.
Nothing important then. You know, a minor thing in the whole situation is what you're trying to say.
Exactly. A little thing. Nobody knew the reasons why he was actually there or the reason why it was being considered. And most importantly, the actual process of the court was flawed. I mean, that doesn't scream...
Stalin.
Exactly.
Bring him in. Right, you're going away to the Gulag for speaking out against the Supreme Leader. Wait, I thought I was going to the Gulag for being a capitalist. Just fucking set up the Gulag and get him out of my sight, would you?
Yeah, we don't need a reason. Or fair trial.
Show me the man and I'll show you the crime. Was that the crime? Oh, no, that wasn't the crime. Shit. Okay, show me the man and I'll show you several crimes and just pick one.
Yeah, give me multiple choice. Give me multiple choice.
Well, what exactly would be sufficient urgency to justify rushing him into court in a matter of an hour and a half? Is he Guy Fawkes? I mean, what exactly is going on here?
They tried to say the reason why they tried to get him into court as quickly as possible is so that it didn't interfere with the court cases that were going on. But the thing is that as he was being arrested, the court case actually finished. So before he even got sent to the court case he was reporting on had finished.
There was did anybody see that that BBC thing recently? It was about I've forgotten all the names because I'm going live and trying to be entertaining and all that sort of stuff, so I've completely forgotten everything about everything. But it was the BBC thing and Hugh Grant was in it, and it was about this MP back in the 60s or something using rent boys.
The liberal fucking prime minister.
Yeah.
Well, before you guys go on too much, Common Sense guy, you scrolled down a little bit. I would like to bring up the fact that the courtroom was packed with Tommy Robinson supporters, and they broke into applause as the decision was announced. I would have loved to be sitting there behind the judges just to see their reaction as the whole courtroom, breaks into celebration. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, no, well said. No, well said. I'm quite happy that they all broke out into applause as well. It shows you the level of support that Tommy Robinson actually bloody has, and so he should do as well. I mean, some people say that he's doing it for his own personal gain and things like that. I don't really care the reasons why he's doing it. It's the fact that he's doing it when nobody else is.
I don't think anybody could be so driven as he is if they were doing it for personal gain. I really don't, and he said that he's been unable to find work, and some people were taking him on, but it was dribs and drabs. It was clearly people feeling sorry for him, and he realised that this is what he had to be doing.
Yeah.
So it's just things have lined up. Sometimes that happens in life.
Definitely. I mean,
your personal gain doesn't actually make it worth less than it being a good service for other people too.
No, I completely not agree with that, and I have to go to the point of when you have left-wing newspapers, which is nigh on 98% of them, coming out and actually saying former leader of the EDL, and so on and so forth, far-right extremists and things like that, you're not really going to be able to get a job because you're being persecuted. You're being discriminated against for your political beliefs. And I thought the left didn't like that. Just saying. Just thought I'd put that out there.
No, they love it because, see, they say they don't like it, which is generally a good indicator that they act out the opposite.
I completely agree. I love pointing out their hypocrisies without actually pointing it out. Mr. Robinson was not present for the hearing and is expected to be released from prison later. He is not allowed to go within 400 meters of Leeds Crown Court until the rehearing, which I'm sure he won't bother going anywhere near it. Around 25 of his supporters were gathered outside the Royal Courts of Justice by the time the ruling was made. One of them told Sky News the announcement was good news and bad news because Mr. Robinson will face a rehearing into the allegation at a later date. But if you're being released from... Anyway, yeah, Tommy Robinson's free for the moment.
So, now here's the thing, because the initial fuck-up hasn't actually gone away. If they're releasing him on bail, are they releasing him on bail for contempt or on bail for breach of the peace?
No, that's the thing. They're not doing it for that. And the thing is that they're worrying about is because they're going to be doing him on a separate allegation. Sorry,
Or is this the
the
blanket
reason
ban part now? Because he's been charged for 3 things, and one of them was the blanket ban.
kinda.
Yeah.
I wanted to show you what Tommy Robinson looked like after prison.
Holy
Jesus.
shit.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. Yeah, what the fuck? Did they feed him or what?
I don't know. I know that it looks a little bit more shattered as I've gone in, and now I'm fucking around everywhere. But that is Tommy Robinson after coming out of prison.
He looks
He's only-
somehow 20 years older and younger.
Yes.
Well, no, I'm wondering. He's only been in there for what? 2 months? 3 months?
I think 3.
And 3, and he's that emaciated. I mean, like, no, he had the big square jaw. He was pretty built, you know. I'm like 230, 240. He was about my size. I don't know how tall he is. I'm 6 feet, but now he looks like my fucking tweaker best friend who's in jail right now. That doesn't make sense. Like,
It was a case of he was in solitary confinement for most of the time. As I said at the beginning of the stream, I know you weren't in this bit at that moment. They don't feed you that well when you're in that type of... And they don't give you good meals when you're in there either.
well, in American jail, you get 3 square meals. You're fed well. You have good health care. That's why, you know, Charles Manson didn't die until he was 70-something.
Of
I
course.
mean, they feed you in prison. So,
Yeah, our prisons don't have enough money to do that, apparently.
Yeah, we've seen the size of some of the guys that come out of American prisons. They would have to feed you.
Yeah.
Be that size.
yeah, all you have to do is work out and eat. I mean, that's it. But it looks like they literally starved the man, and he was only in there 3 months. What would have happened with the full 13? Holy
He
fuck.
wouldn't have come out, and we all know it.
Well, that's the reason why so many people from so many different parts of the world have all joined forces to try and get him out as quick as possible. So, yeah, on that one.
Absolutely, and I'm happy to be a part of that, you know, the voices that were shouting from the internet. You know, even though we really didn't do much, but we tried, and he's out. So maybe we did. Maybe, you know, it was us. Who knows?
I think it probably had more to do with the fact that Gerard Butler, the leader of UKIP, a couple of other people that are from the European Union as well, coming across and telling everybody, yeah, if something actually happens to him, then we're going to hold you personally accountable. And they said that to Sabir Javid as well, didn't they, to the Home Office? Anything happens to Tommy Robinson while he's in prison, we're going to hold the government completely responsible, and to the Home Office as well. I think that had the government shaking in their boots. They didn't think anybody would stand up to him like that.
And he's going to have... I mean, he did anyway, but he's going to have balls of brass now that he's come out of that. Like...
Oh, yeah.
Because he's going to be thinking, right, well, they're just going to take me tomorrow, so I need to get all of it out today. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
You've been able to see the clock in his eyes for years, because he knows they were going to pull this on him at one stage or another. And now that it's finally happened, he is going to be, like, completely fearless now, I think, personally. I think he's going to be... And he's got the exposure now. They, you know, looking at it from the evil one's point of view of arresting him, they actually did it at the right time. For them, as good as they could, because he hadn't really got super exposure yet. Like he's becoming a household name.
Yeah.
Because they fucked this up. They should have. Their timing was good, but their execution was pathetic. Now he's going to come out. He had just enough support before to be a name on the internet, but now he's got enough support and enough numbers and enough money and enough, drive that he could be a household name by the end of the year.
Oh yeah, and I think he's a household name already. I think he's now coming to that point of martyrdom. He's now becoming as I said before, he is the figurehead for this idea of people that are trying to fight the idea of Islamicism or Islamists, if you want to call it that. The idea that people actually have a figurehead and a banner to fight under, and I think that's the reason why Tommy was actually arrested and put into prison beforehand. I think people were so scared about the idea of people actually following him, and the fact that people were listening to him and they were understanding that what he was saying was true. I think that scared the establishment more than anything that Tommy Robinson would ever have to say.
Well, no, and I totally agree, and that's why I brought up Guy Fawkes, because it's almost the same type of thing. He was, for the Catholic population of England at the time, what Tommy is now for, the native British, because you are being invaded. Let's not fucking pussyfoot around that fact. If you have areas within London and Manchester that you can't go to, and you were born in London or Manchester, there's a goddamn fucking problem. All right?
No, I have to kind of agree with that. I mean, a lot of people would use different words than invasion, but I
or
think
Guy Fawkes for that matter.
well, I don't know. Guy Fawkes was under the impression that at that point in time, Parliament was completely and utterly trying to destroy their way of life. They were being completely and utterly oppressive. For whatever Guy Fawkes actually tried to do, though he wasn't able to physically do that, to remember the king more than government, as in the king was actually trying to, as Mad Dodge said, to try and get rid of the Catholics to make sure the Protestants were. Wait, is it the right one? No, I think that's the wrong way around. Whatever.
No,
it was a case of
he was,
religious persecution.
He
was able to stop it.
He was a foreign-backed, effectively suicide bomber, and he was there was going to be a 500-mile.
There was no suicide involved, and he was foreign backed by the fact that he was Catholic, and the Catholic population
was such a huge fallout of the fire because all the buildings were wooden. He was told beforehand that he would take out something like 400 square meters or something like that of. No, not meters. Anyway, a lot of fucking buildings. They said it would be akin to watching a nuclear blast go off at the time, and he was fine with that. So, I wouldn't use that particular example.
I never said he was totally correct in his thought process. Obviously, it was a stupid plan, and if you were going to execute it, you should have executed it right after the first search, when they walked right past the gunpowder. But anyway, I do know a little bit about Guy Fawkes, and I was raised Catholic, so maybe I have a bias here. But I do believe that the correlation is somewhat true when it comes to the Catholic oppression and now the oppression you guys are going through with your native English population, because you're not allowed to be British anymore. What happens when you fly St. George's Cross? You get looked down upon. Yeah.
No, I completely and utterly agree with actually Mad Dodge's statement there. I do think that there can be an equivalence drawn between the idea of Guy Fawkes and the ideas of Tommy Robinson. Both of them are trying to fight an establishment and the idea of oppression between the native people. So I can see a comparison there. There's not a complete comparison, but there's something there. You can draw upon it. I just wanted to quickly go through this live event that was done by Sky News, which is a small amount of points, and just quickly go through it. We obviously have Robinson due to leave prison, and just the way that they write about it as well. Tommy Robinson is expected to leave the prison he has been incarcerated in since May. He has been held at Onley Prison near Rugby, but will be let out today after a judge overturned his conviction and ordered a rehearing into an allegation of contempt of court. And obviously the second bit, which is key points. Remember, this is written by Sky. Tommy Robinson wins contempt of court appeal, obviously just going over the story that we actually just read beforehand. Next point. which is absolutely amazing that they decided to put this in here. Ex-EDL leader will face retrial into allegation.
Gosh.
It's just like, why? Just why? Stop trying to remind everybody or trying to force hatred towards him just because you don't like the fact that he founded something over 7 years ago and left it.
And it shows you their inherent bias as well, because, you know, he's got quite a big CV. And
Yes.
there's more recent things than that, because they could have said, you know, journalist Tommy Robinson, or former speaker for the Hindu Council of Britain, Tommy Robinson, but they don't want it. They don't want to use that.
And Sikh, Hindu and Sikh Council.
Yep.
Basically,
the Hindus and Sikhs must all be racist as well, though.
They are.
No.
You should know that. They're Asian.
And so they're racist towards themselves. Other Asians. Sorry, hang on. Just doing my mental gymnastics stretching before I go any further.
I think these little bits from 1528 up to 1531 are the most important part of this. And Robinson refuses to respond to question. He's approached by Sky News to ask a question. Robinson tells our reporter, "Why would I have anything to say to you? All you do is lie. You've lost the faith of the British public."
Nice.
Fucking owned.
It gets better. It gets better if they actually write it down, from what I remember. How Robinson left. He walked around for 3 minutes from the prison, blah, blah, blah. Hang on just a second. Sorry, I missed a bit. Robinson continues to ignore questions from our reporter. He says, "All the mainstream media do is lie. The British public no longer believe. I've got a lot to say, but nothing to you." I think...
they'll be shitting themselves.
Yes. Yes, they will. Yes, they goddamn will.
Because this is the thing, is like, I don't mean to get too lofty, and I will bring it back down again, don't worry, but it's just like, this is unsustainable because it's effectively a war of lies against truth. And I know that lies are more common, and, you know, they're easier to tell lies, and people are more accepting of lies, but eventually the truth will out, as they always say, because it's just how shit works. And it's like, they've been covering up and covering up and covering up for decades what has been going on in this country, and now they're just running out of room. They've mopped themselves into a corner, you know, and they don't know how much space they've got left before it all comes out, because it will all come out. He's got more followers than half of them do viewers on TV.
He does. He does. I think you're quite like this little point, crumple point. Communist. Sorry, wrong word.
Freudian.
Columnist Andrew Walker says on Sky News, "The establishment in this country think the solution to the problems Tommy Robinson is highlighting is just to silence Tommy Robinson. That has manifestly failed."
Yep.
Wow, great choice of words. But Dr. Lisa Mackenzie, a sociologist, says Tommy Robinson is not representing working class people at all. What he's doing is spreading hatred and right-wing conspiracy theories. There are real problems in the working class communities, and child rape. Sorry, I thought she was going to tell the truth. And the problems here is about inequity rather than blaming any particular group. You sure she's not a socialist?
No, she's right, though, because inequity is a huge problem in the cases Tommy Robinson is talking about, because lots and lots of children are being raped, right? Now, what we want is all the children not to be raped. So if we have all children equally not raped, then Tommy Robinson wouldn't be a thing.
Well, there is that. There is that, but then that counts as using your actual common sense and actually, you know, working stuff out. Apparently, people don't want to do that. But I found Mr. Andrew Walker's points quite interesting, as he's a columnist. Is a case of the establishment in this country think the solution to the Tommy Robinson problems that he's highlighting is just to silence Tommy, and I think that that's absolutely amazingly highlighted. That even on a program like Sky News, that is trying to be, as we can see by the way that they're writing, completely and utterly biased towards the idea that Tommy's a racist and whatever, they still have people that are still defending him. I think that's absolutely amazing. That it's still a case that people can still do that.
Well, I want to hear what Voice of One has to say, unless he's making the Union Jack into a cape, because he's been quiet for a while.
He's
Yeah,
been kidnapped by aliens.
I was going to
Or a
say,
sofa.
I was going to say, you have to remember, Voices One's a little bit old, so he's probably fallen asleep.
No, I've been quietly listening to all of you.
Oh, I don't like the way you said that. I don't like the way you said that. What have you been doing?
Nothing.
I'm not too sure.
So I shouldn't check the mail tomorrow.
No, again, I can't really add anything because you lads have covered all the angles, so, you know.
Yay!
Well, okay.
I do want
Voice-
to point out real quick. I want to point out that I did check the chat when I got back, and Loafer took a little exception to my Guy Fawkes analogy, I think. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Sorry to cut you off, Crumple.
There's a lot of. I think the folklore of Guy Fawkes has masked a lot of what he was actually. Pardon the pun. What he was actually all about. It was a very nasty period in British history, and I don't think it's a good idea to worship anybody on either side. But anyway, yeah. So, Voice. Realistically speaking, without memeing, how bad do you think it will get before it gets any better?
I don't think we're there yet. I think it's. I think we're at a crossover point. I think this year. I think the major. It will change if things don't change with small things. If it turns out that we do go no deal Brexit, that will kill the left. So that will be a game changer. Trump gets re-elected, that will be a game changer. Again, it's going to take something very public, very large to kill off the far left, whose lies we're all trying to bottle on a daily basis. I think Tommy getting out was a victory 50-50. It's good that he's out, but again, he's out now, so his name will disappear for a while from the mainstream media. They won't. When he was in jail, they had to cover it. They had no choice. Even if it was just 100% personal attack on him, they had to cover it because there was demonstrations, there was activists, the thing for Tommy Robinson in London had, 20,000 or plus people on it. They had no choice, but now he's out, they can choose not to write anything about him. So it's good and bad, and I say again, I don't think we'll see an end of it this year. Again, I think it will be next year, and if we get a no deal Brexit, basically we just turn around and tell the EU to fuck off, which is my fucking vote. That will be a game changer, because then the left have nothing to grasp onto. All their ties to all the globalists in Europe will be cut, and they'll have no choice but to welcome reality back to their thinking, because they'll have no fucking choice. So yeah, I think overall 50-50 on Tommy getting out for, what would you say, the cause, quote unquote. But we're not going to see it die off anytime. Again, you have to remember that if we go back, it was the start of 97, 98, basically under Blair's Labour, that you saw everything starting to go left. Now, that's a good 20 years. So it's going to take, even if it changes next year, it's still going to take 15 to 20 years for it go back for the pendulum to get back into center. So again, you are going to have to live with this. Maybe not to such a severe degree we're living with it now, but you will have to live to it for another while. So yeah, there's going to be, if anybody out there watching this who thinks this is just going to be a quick fix, no, sorry.
No, I'd actually have to agree with Voice of One on that one.
Yeah, well said.
It's not going to be a case of all Tommy Robinson's free. We've won. It's not a case of that at all. It's a case of we have somebody that is now going to still be talking about things. But the thing is, if you want the right to win, so to speak, or if you want the idea of actually egalitarianism, as we've actually had as the main thought on this stream, then it's a case of you need to say something. The people that are watching this need to say something. Doesn't mean that you need to do videos, doesn't mean that you need to be activists, doesn't mean that you need to go out and actually do stuff. But if somebody comes to you and says something along the lines of, I don't believe that these kids that were raped by these men who were doing this or they were doing that, you can defend them. If somebody comes to you and says Tommy Robinson is racist, if you want to, you can defend them. Those are the ways that you're going to change society, not by actually pushing different legislations and things like that. You change society by changing society's mind one person at a time. That's how you change it in the long run. And that's what Voice of One is hinting towards. The fact is that you have to change the minds of these people to be able to get them to actually look at your point of view, to see things from your point of view and understand what you mean and what Tommy Robinson means, not what they think he means and what they think you mean.
Yeah, I think that there's been a little bit of a revolution culturally that hasn't manifested itself yet, which is the atheists have taken so long to get their shit together and replace God with something like, something that you can live off of that isn't just, materialism. And it's finally starting to happen. And I think what the people generally are coming up with as the answer is that you've got to be the best person you can. And what you're saying is one of the ways you do that. And what Voice is saying, well, how we get all that to happen is, I think that what will start to happen more and more is people will think, well, politics really isn't a solution. And, these big, massive, cults like social justice warriors and feminists and even the alt-right are not an answer to anybody's problems. They're just more problems. And if that sort of personal revolution can overtake a political one, I think we'll be okay. But if the politics runs away with itself and people get locked into this tribe mentality, then I think things will get very bad. Because, the majority of the left are completely cucked, but there's that small hard core that are extremely dangerous and extremely capable, and a lot of them are very smart as well. And you can't just hammer them away. They are going to be part of society forever, and if you can't just hammer on them and expect to just squash them away instantly. And if we can, instead of doing that, just convince as many people as possible to abandon this bullshit, I think, that's how it's got to happen.
I have to say, I think my friends Common Sense Guy and Crumple Point have taken the wrong meaning out of what I said. The meaning behind what I actually said was anybody who, quote unquote, calls themselves a progressive, we just fucking throw them in an oven.
Okay, so
I missed the nuance.
Just a second. Just a second. The views that are expressed on this live stream are the views of every individual, and not
the views of maniacs talking about ovens. We're obviously them from helicopters.
Well, now that Common Sense Guy made his disclaimer, it's my turn. Okay, so Crumple Point, I kind of liked where you were going there a little bit, but when you talk about the atheist community, you have taken a long time to get around to their fucking point. And they're trying to replace God with either Darwinism or the state. And if you look at a large portion of the atheist community, even being pro-life makes you anti-them. Believe me, I've already gotten into this fight recently because I am agnostic. I was raised Catholic, and now I don't necessarily believe. I definitely don't actively believe, So I do enjoy arguing theology and stuff. But the second I bring up being pro-life, God damn it, I'm a fucking hardcore Christian, supposedly. Or I'm far fucking right. How dare I tell you what to do with your own body, even though it's not. Anyway.
Yeah, man,
but
absolutely. Like that's exactly my point. Is for years the best that atheists, because we were just, I think, as a phenomenon, atheism was still finding its feet. It was in its infancy. It didn't have the grounding that the rest of society had because it was new, and so they just rushed towards materialism. And for so long, the best we could do was people like fucking Dawkins, and we just like over the last 10 years or so have been going, this isn't good enough. We need something, well, more human than this. And I think we're starting to get that. And what people have realized that is the best thing is truth and reason. And so that's why, the alt media have just fucking exploded. That's why people like Tommy Robinson are getting loads and loads of support, because people are like, okay, I don't have a god as such, but things in life that aren't material are still important. And one of those things is the truth and other human beings. And I think that little revolution is starting to push forward, but it needs to get its fucking running shoes on. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I actually totally agree with you on that. But the thing, it still remains though. It's like a club where you know the password and the secret handshake, and they let you in, and then you say, Star Trek is better than Star Wars, for example, and they kick you out the fucking back door and beat your ass. Like, you say one thing wrong with the atheist community, and you're fucking done. And I don't necessarily think that's reasonable or being skeptical, in my opinion. And maybe I'm just being biased because my latest run-in with that community. But damn, for being being based on reason, they're not very reasonable.
Oh,
Well,
I'd
atheists
actually have
is
to
like
agree
an
with that.
umbrella catch-all. It's not a singular movement or anything like that. I just mean like kind of everybody not of faith, let's say, rather than the atheist community. And I think that's where a lot of these problems come from, because then you get statheists and you get, you know, apathy brigade, and you get what was the other thing you mentioned? Just outright consumerists and stuff like that. And
Materialism.
yeah, and so what's happened is, yes, some of them will still be doing what they're doing and replacing God with the state. Some of them will always do that, but who weren't swayed by anybody's argument have started to finally work out we need to come up with our own stuff. And but like you say, this is still happening. Of like you say, well, maybe human life is sacred, and or not. Therefore, one side or the other will have you flayed in the street.
I still think that has more to do with the idea of religion in itself, not necessarily to do with the atheist community per se. For me, I mean, I'm atheist, but yet at the same time, I believe in the sanctity of life. I believe that life begins at the point of conception. The point that I believe that you're making, Mr. Crumple Point, is the fact that even though that everybody may have an umbrella term as I'm an atheist, or even part thereof as an agnostic, would still be the point of everybody still has different ideologies, still everybody still believes different things. I still think it's a form of identity politics to be able to throw yourself under a banner and then say, well, that's it, I believe in atheism, so therefore I'm superior to whatever. I've never said that to anybody. I never would do. So anybody that does believe in a religion, that's their choice, always has been. But that's the point. We, in ourselves, and even including with Tommy Robinson, to bring it back as well, it's a case of we have these conversations that we need to have. The idea of when is the sanctity of life? Where is it a good point and good reasons to have abortions? Or should we not have any at all? These are conversations that we need to have without the forms of morality put into them, and the actual ideas of being able to talk about them openly and discuss them purposely. Not to be able to go, I believe in this and you believe in that, and you're a bastard and you're a cunt and you're this and you're... Those are not going to get us anywhere. And that's the same thing for the problems that actually delve with us in real life. And by that, I mean in politics, as in being able to go down the street and being able to buy something. These are all problems that we actually need to talk about physically, rather than trying to shout at everybody about the reason why this kid did this is because of capitalism, and the reason why this kid did that is because of communism. Who gives a shit what ideology it is? Find out what the reasons are, stop those reasons from happening, and then it won't happen, regardless of what the reasonings are.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, for that, regardless of what the reasonings are, we can sort things out by talking.
Yeah, and that's why I think that these little strange little coalitions between, atheists and hardcore fundamentalist Christians, well, maybe not fundamentalists, but really hardcore devout Christians, keeps popping up, because both people you could put one label on one and one label on another, but the thing they have in common is that they believe in, human life, looking after people, and the truth. And so you've got Christians, leftists, atheists, right-wingers, all it's a broad church, all backing people like Tommy Robinson, because it's people that are going, look, what matters is these fucking kids, and what matters is our culture and protecting it from people who would want to see it are utterly destroyed. And the thing is that that's compelling. And people who maybe don't have a belief system because they've ended up atheists or whatever, and let's say just people not of faith. I don't mean like atheists as if it's something you actually you don't go to atheist church, you know what I mean? All Gentiles are not the same religion when Jews talk about Gentiles, you know what I mean? But the thing is that people have realized that you don't need religion, and it's not religious to believe in things like the sanctity of life, as you said. And what's happened is, I think that people like us are a symptom of that. Of a lot of us are atheists or agnostic or what have you, and we've kind of rode this wave of realizing, no, this is important. And the other thing is, we're pointing out the lefts, not just the lefts, because the mainstream right and the centre are all unanimous in this. But we're pointing out this hypocrisy because they keep going on about, oh, no child left behind, and listen and believe. And it's like, well, we're telling you, these kids are being raped. We're telling you, we can prove it. The police can prove it. The politicians are proving it by covering it up. Where's your compassion now?
Yeah, no, completely and utterly agree with you. That's the reason why straight after I heard about Telford, it was a case of putting up Feminists Respond, because that was the one point.
By the way, not to tongue your arse, but that was brilliant.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I will make sure I wipe afterwards. But that's the reason why I did make that video, because the only time that you would ever want to have their power used for what they would be able to do was then, and they didn't bring up anything to be able to defend those girls. In fact, some of them were put onto newsreels and into news stations and were actually heavily insinuated that it was their fault for dressing promiscuously. It was their fault for dressing a particular way. Wasn't that the whole point of the left's point in rape culture and the idea of the Me Too movement, that it shouldn't matter what you wear, it shouldn't matter what you do on this, and it shouldn't matter if you're doing anything?
Yeah, man. I mean, like, and could you imagine a world where Anne Hathaway and Emma Watson went to the UN and said, there's massive areas of the UK that are no-go zones, and they are prostituting thousands of young girls in these no-go zones. What are you doing about it? Imagine that world. It would be solved like that.
No, completely agree with you. Go on.
Well, no, real quick, I gotta go because I gotta start the red eye stream. But not plugging my own shit. Sorry, Thomas.
You're all right, mate. You're all right. You're fine. Please plug it. The red eye's a very interesting stream to watch. So if you do want to watch it, it starts normally at 11. So straight after this, I'm sure he will be putting it ready. So please go and watch that.
But Crumple Point, to take a step further, I really think what you're talking about is not necessarily people unifying against the obvious crimes going on in your country. It was the people uniting to preserve free speech. And I think that even goes beyond any of these criminal acts, any of that stuff. Yeah.
I did overlook that, and that is actually even more powerful, actually, in some ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I would love to see is something me and Cabbage have talked about quite a few times. I would love to see the UK not necessarily write the Constitution word for word, but adopt the freedom of speech, adopt the right to bear arms. You know, you need the right to talk. anything you feel like, and you need a right to defend yourself as you're doing the talking. And I really would like to see that step in, the future of the UK, which brought us the Magna Carta, which brought the colonies and the United States into existence, whether good or for ill. That being said, I do got to go create my stream, but thank you, Common Sense Guy. It only took half an hour of bitching. I appreciate the link. And after you end this, if you want a part 2 of Tommy is Free, come on over, brother.
I will do, mate. I will do. Thank you very much for the offer, friend. I think that we've covered most of the stuff that we really need to cover, but if anybody wants to take us into a different direction, then please do. So that's an open choice to everybody.
I would like to hear everybody's thoughts just on the idea of, in general, how betrayed the public feel once they've been red-pilled and see all these celebrities being so vocal about, fuck Trump, but they won't, take a moment out of their day to talk about this stuff, and just, talk about that, guys. Generally as generally or specifically as you like. I'd be interested to know that sort of disconnect.
Well, speaking as the resident nerd here, growing up, you watch all these people, you think they're awesome, and you can't help but have some sort of, even if it is just however small, an emotional connection to these people. You see them as, people to look up to, people who are able to, at least in some way, make your dreams come to reality in film, TV, etc. But then to turn around and see them come out with such a load of fucking horse shit. I used to follow a lot of people on Twitter, right? The cast of Star Trek, various big name actors that I've found out were all left wing, and you just read their tweets and you're like, what the fuck are these people on? Because they are. I know it does, in a good way, it does, make you think, well, okay, they were all right in that one acting job, but in their personal lives, they're fucking dipshits. So it's good that it creates a disconnect for nerds like myself from people like that, right? But it's just, not Anne Hathaway coming out and saying that every black person lives in constant fear in America. And you would just think to yourself, how the hell does anybody, now remember, this is someone who is a millionaire, has access to as many researchers as she can afford, can take the time to look up this stuff, come out with something so silly. And basically, there's two main reasons why people are following it in Hollywood, why the celebrities are pushing this bullshit. One is because that's what the attitude is by the studios, by the producers, by the mainstream media. For them to be able to keep themselves in the spotlight and to say, look how good I am, to try and get people to, again, watch them, they have to push this certain ideology. The second reason is that you look at quite a lot, besides Batman, not the newest one, but the one before the newest one, The Dark Knight, etc. Before she played Catwoman in that, she played Catwoman in that, what's been her biggest role? Can anybody say it off the top of the head without thinking?
Nope.
There you go. Again, look at that silly fucking twit who cut the head off Trump, who done that there. Before she did that, what was her last biggest project? Again, a lot of these people who are, there was an article, excuse me, there was an article, I think it was in The Independent or The Guardian a while back. 25 British actresses come out, write a letter, come out against something or other. And I couldn't have told you who one of them were. The simple fact is you have to remember that there are quite a lot of people whose careers have dwindled that are trying to get, look at Madonna. What was her last greatest album? I think it was a song with what do you call that wanker? Uh, some blonde kid. It wasn't Bieber, it was the other one. But she did that like 10, 12 years ago. That was her last big thing. And then she goes to the Women's March and say, let's burn the White House down. You have to remember that these celebrities look after themselves first. If they think they can get a new job or they can keep their job by saying, fuck Whitey, they'll do it. That's been the key eye opening for me when it comes to celebrities, is that they're as selfish and fucked up as everyone else.
In
They're no
fact,
longer
worse.
Well,
held
before
in a
before our two
pedestal.
co-hosts come in, because I know Jensen for one will want to jump on this one, but what do you think of the idea that they're basically all fucking, some of them unwittingly, basically commie propaganda machines? Like, do you subscribe to that idea? Razor Fist, the Rageaholic, did a really interesting video on that, and there's much literature on the subject that would suggest it's the case. But do you think it's that, or do you think it's just stupidity, or both?
No, I think it's calculated. I think if you want to go back to I know what you're talking about. It's basically why the movie Hail Caesar was based on, was a propaganda during that time period. But no, I have to think, and I do think that the vast majority, 99% of all these actors, they're doing it to further their careers. That's it. I can guarantee you right now, the majority of them don't believe a word they're fucking saying. I mean, look at Joss Whedon. Joss Whedon came out, oh, woman power, woman power. I'm a feminist. Oh, by the way, then his wife comes out, his now ex-wife. Oh, yeah, he cheated on me, not only physically, but emotionally with other women.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's all for their own careers. I don't believe any of them fucking believe any of the bullshit they're saying.
Yeah, I have to completely agree. Jensen Quinn, do you want to answer this question? And if you wanted to, you could get off as well afterwards. Mr. Quinn. Okay, never mind then. I actually have to agree with Voice on this point, to be fair. I honestly do think that it's a case that... Go on then, Mr. Quinn.
All right. All I wanted to say as part of what would class as my final words is I want to thank all of the people that joined the Free Tommy Discord group and helped out as much as they could. Thank you very much for your assistance. That's all I really wanted to say, and hope you guys have a good night. Sorry, but I've got to go off and prep for you know whose channel.
I know, mate. I know. Take care.
Right. Speak to you later, people. Bye-bye.
See you. Yeah, sorry, to answer your question, yeah, no, all of the celebrities and everything else like that actually say fuck Trump and all that sort of stuff. 9 times out of 10, most of them are only doing it because they're told and they're paid to. If you look at Hollywood from the 1950s onwards, most of the most popular people in Hollywood always had some form of political activism, and not necessarily going out and physically doing stuff, but they would say stuff. They would always go against the government, especially if people didn't like what the choices of the government were. Most people would always be anti-establishment, especially if that was the best thing for everybody to be at that point in time. The fact is that it took so long for people to come out about the Harvey Weinstein and that debacle and everything else like that, and the fact that it's probably still going on with other people, just shows you everything that you actually need to know about that sort of industry. It's an industry that jumps on bandwagons rather than it trying to lead the bandwagon. It's not a leader, it's a follower. It's the idea of, okay, well, what's popular? What's going to get us more ratings? What's going to be able to get this or that? It's not politically motivated. It's motivated politically, right? If you understand the meaning of the words.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the reasons why people that follow, like recently, I've been impressed with Kim Kardashian, not because of her TV shows, but how when she's been going around and she was talking to Kimmel, and Kimmel was very, very heavily trying to get her to say some bad stuff about Donald Trump and stuff like that. She was like, well, no, he just literally got somebody out of prison that I wanted to get out of prison at, and I haven't got a bad word to say about him. I'm not going to play your politic games, basically. And surprisingly enough, that really got my respect up for her. Now, normally, I would not respect her at all, but she's gone against the grain, and so's people like Kanye West. And you see what happens when people that are in that industry go against the grain. They are completely blackballed, to use your profile picture. They're completely and utterly blackballed to the point where they are ostracized. They're called stupid. They're called non-free thinkers. They're called Uncle Toms and so on and so forth. Where if it's a case of they actually believed in the ideology that they were trying to preach, as in that we should be a liberal society, everybody should be able to make their own choices, should be able to do what they want to do. Why is it a case that when somebody disagrees with you, that they're either wrong, racist, bigoted, completely and utterly horrible, or the most horriblest person that you can think in the world, which is Donald Trump, apparently? I mean, don't get me wrong, Donald Trump's not the pinnacle of humanity or anything, but if Donald Trump's the worst human being in the world, I can't think there'd be too many people that would be that well, that the actual countries themselves wouldn't be that bad. They'd be all right. There wouldn't be too much bad in the world, would there? Really?
Yeah. Well, and they would all be a lot more successful as well.
There is that.
Competent. But no, yeah, well said, guys. Because I'm glad, because I was hoping I would get answers like that because I was interested, and yeah, needless to say, I feel the same way, and I do think it is largely orchestrated. Because even with if you look at the late stages of the Athenian Empire in Greece, this is exactly what happened there. They controlled the population through theatre. Theatre was used by the population to say a fuck you to the government.
Yep.
They had to actually sit. The president, if you want to call them that, would have to sit in the front row and be roasted in a play. And he would have to sit there for 3 days and have the piss taken out of him in plays and clap and smile and tell everybody what a good job they'd done. And then what it did was it moved into, at the late stage, completely the opposite. It was put on as propaganda, and the actors were just hired as politicians because they knew that they would be able to say anything and say it convincingly. So they stopped being actors and became politicians. Well, what does that sound like? And so I think that the president's there, the money's there, and the ideology is there. So I don't think it is a conspiracy theory. I think it is a conspiracy.
Yep. No, I completely and utterly agree. Somebody in the chat called Jewett said an ideology can't fail. That goes for nationalism as well. And obviously socialism will rise and so on and so forth. I just wanted to make a quick point. It's nothing to do with you yourself. It's to do with the point. The point is an ideology can fail. Ideologies failed all the time, hence why different governments always change hands. Because governments themselves are set on a manifesto. Whatever country that you go into, they always put on the manifesto if you are elected. That means that when a government changes hands, that ideology and that manifesto changes. Now, if you change from a Democrat to a Republican, or if you change from Conservative to Labour or whatever, those ideologies nationally are changing, which means that the demographic in the country changes. So ideologies fluctuate and changes on a daily basis. The ideology itself is what you can believe in. It's not a case of the ideology itself is going to be the do-all or end-all if it's nationalism, capitalism, or socialism. Ideologies fail all the time. It's about how many people follow the ideology for make it successful or not.
That was excellently put. I think that maybe our friend in the chat might have meant it that kind of ironically, like there's nothing you can say to an ideologue that will show them that their ideology has failed. I think it might be meant either way. I don't know, but well said nonetheless.
No, that's fine. He didn't say fail. Apparently, he said fall. Ideologies fall all the time. It's even easier to go through. Look at the Roman Empire. Look at the Spartans. Look at any empire that you want to look forward or back to. Ideologies fail all the time, or fall all the time. Fail or fall is very, very similar. But yeah, no, I'm quite happy with that point. It's like the idea of when people say, "Oh, that's not true socialism. That's not true nationalism. That's not true this. That's not true that." I just find that argument completely and utterly redundant. Why don't you just say it's not your idea? It's not the way that you would have done it. It is socialism. It is communism. It's just not the way that you would have done it. I think we're basically
exactly.
Yeah. Go on. I was going to say.
I was done. I was all done.
Yeah, that's fine. I was going to say. I think we're pretty much done anyway. Does anybody else have anything to say on their final words? And actual fact, Crumple Point, you haven't said a final word. Oh, no, actually, neither of you have done.
Oh, I didn't know that was the final word.
No, we'll do final words now.
Right, yeah. So I'll go first, yes?
Yeah, might as well. Give chance for Voice of One to realise that he needs to come into play.
Get himself away from that sofa and wiki. And anyway, so yeah, I think I'd like to end just on what I was saying earlier about all of us, myself included. We need to be more personally involved, because if we try and deal with things in big political terms, you just need to look at the extreme hardcore left and right to see that they always externalize their own failings into politics, and then they use politics to like smear their problems, nationwide or internationally. And I think the only antidote to that is to make yourself better every day. Like just make yours, for two reasons. You need to be in a position of strength if you're going to resist these people, because if you're not in a position of strength, you'll not have the time, resources, the resistance to anxiety, the physical, in some cases, strength to deal with these people. And I'm not saying go out and beat people up. I'm just saying, like, if somebody was to attack me, I think I have, as a human being, a certain degree of responsibility to be able to be in a situation where I'm able to resist or get away. And that's all morally true as well. Like, you have to be intelligent and resistant to their verbal attacks and their ostracism and all these tactics that they use. Because if you're not doing that, you're not in a position of strength. And if you're not in a position of strength in those regards, then how can you help somebody like Tommy Robinson, who's already miles up there compared to us in what he can get done? And be that sort of, like, I would quote, sort of Peterson and Stefan Molyneux, of like, you have to be that difficult person at dinner parties and stop speaking things you know to be lies. And that's a really good start with these people. You don't need to go head on and fight Big Red in a big argument in the street. Just next time somebody says to you, that Trump, he's the worst person on the planet, just say, well, no, actually, he's not. He's all right. Or whatever you think is true. Just say whatever you think is true and don't fold. And that's a really good start. And what you'll find happens is you get a bit braver and all the rest kind of falls into place. You won't be Tommy Robinson overnight, but you'll start to notice big improvements in your confidence, and people will not actually be as hostile as you think they'll be. So that's my final word. Thank you guys for having me on very much.
No problem. Thank you very much. That's a Voice of One's turn now, if you're there.
Goodbye.
I appreciate that final word. Do you have anything else to say, mate, or is that it?
No, that's it.
That's fine. Not a problem, mate. I do not have too much to actually say. I'm very happy with the way that the stream went today. I thought it was a really good stream. I thought we had very good conversations. I'm very thankful for everybody that come on, including my American harasser. I had a very good stream. I enjoyed the conversation. The talking was very, very interesting. Conversation was great. To be fair, though, I think that if we try to follow people like Tommy Robinson a little bit more, or we try and follow people that we believe are telling the truth, instead of believing them, do what Voice of One's already said before. Actually do some fact checks. Go out, research, do your own stuff. Try and actually find out what you know is true, and then follow the people that you know are telling the truth, rather than believing they're telling the truth. And there is such a difference between those two. It's unmeasurable. The idea of following somebody that is believing to be true is completely different to you following somebody because you know they're telling the truth. completely different in that point. But with that being said, thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much, everyone. And I'll see you all again real soon.